Hi, this is Alessio. I hope you're well, and welcome to a quick update on the Bitcoin situation. I want to talk to you here about what's happening recently, what has been happening recently on the Bitcoin charts. And notice something important here on the long-term charts first. We're going to take a look at the daily time frame charts for a moment, but just have a look here on this chart as I'm looking at this weekly chart of Bitcoin. It has fallen in the last few days. It has fallen below this long-term trend line that you're seeing here. And not only that, today, as I'm making this video, we are below the critical level that I've always mentioned before is a very key level. That's the 21 weekly moving average. So what could this potentially mean? Before I discuss that, let me first of all do a quick recap of what I said in my previous video. If you recall in my previous video, I showed you this trend line, and let me just draw that one more time. If we just connect that trend line one more time here. So here's what I pointed out. I said on Sunday that we should not become too confident and too cocky because the Bitcoin price was struggling to get above that trend line that you're seeing right there. So when we drew that trend line back on Sunday, Bitcoin had just stalled. In other words, it come to a stop right at that trend line resistance right there that you can see within that time window right there. And I said, look, that's not looking good because Bitcoin actually has to get above that trend line and get above the 10K level, 10K psychological resistance, and it needs to do it fast within the next 24 hours by the end of Monday, which is the end of that time zone, by the way, that red area. Bitcoin couldn't do that, and you can see what happened right there. Bitcoin struggled to get through that trend line, and also Bitcoin broke the level that I mentioned in my previous video, 9,600, and I said, look, if Bitcoin falls below 9,600, that's it. We're going lower into the next key levels, the deeper scenario. Let me play for you just a very short clip of my video from Sunday. Bitcoin is still underneath that trend line. So not everything is in the clear just yet. So that's why I'm saying we should not get too cocky and not get overconfident just yet on Bitcoin. It has to clear. Bitcoin has to get above that trend line either today or by tomorrow. The quicker, the better. And it needs to happen within the time window that I mentioned to you earlier, at the very least by the end of Monday tomorrow. If by the end of tomorrow, by the end of Monday, Bitcoin has still not managed to climb its way and get above and close above that high it made there today, the high of 10,024, then that could potentially be a warning sign. And if Bitcoin fails to get above today's high, and if it falls below 9,600, in other words, if it falls below the support level, then it opens the risk. It opens the bearish scenario down towards the 9,000 level. So guys, even though my higher probability, my primary, or should I say my preferred scenario, was for Bitcoin to actually hold these levels, hold the 21 moving average, and push through this trend line and move higher, it seems Bitcoin did not want to follow that bullish scenario. And instead, it held that resistance at the trend line and the 10K level and dropped below 9,600 into these next important levels here. So that brings about the deeper pullback scenario, the deeper retracement scenario into the 200 daily moving average and the level we're in on the weekly charts, which is the 50 moving average here as well. There's a 50 and below the 21 at the moment here. Guys, I got to tell you, things are not looking good. And here's why. This is my line in the sand. This is the important level now for Bitcoin. Let me just draw that for you right here. Firstly, it's going to be the lows of Wednesday. That's going to be very important because that low that it made there, it bounced off from, that's going to be critical. Bitcoin needs to at least hold that. But look, if it can't do that, then it needs to hold this level here, that trend line you're seeing through there. If I just zoom out a little bit, and you'll see exactly that level that I'm talking about. So by connecting these lows here on my chart, we can see where that meets us right there on that level. It's about 8,300 approximately, which is convenient because that also is the closing lows on Bitcoin a few weeks back. It's about 8,300 approximately. And it's also where the 144 EMA is, that other blue line you see on my chart. So there's three levels coming across that chart right now. The trend line, very important. The support levels from January, and also the 144 simple moving average, not EMA, but SMA. So that's a critical triple support that we have there, 8,300, which means, guys, if that level breaks, if we see Bitcoin suddenly breaking that level and closing below that level, I'm out. So when I say I'm out, essentially that means I'm closing all long positions, simple as that. And if I just show you, this is the chart of Bitcoin here on the weekly time frame chart. So This is the 50 simple moving average, that gray line you see there. A very important support level, by the way, on Bitcoin. Now, the 21 weekly average is also important, that blue line, but that's the next key level of support. Look, I'm going to be as fair as possible to Bitcoin here. If Bitcoin can hold that support, the 50 simple moving average, if it can hold that level I just mentioned on the daily time frame chart, again, the trend line, the support from January, and the 144 SMA, which basically is about 8,000, approximately 8,300, although it's possible to argue it's slightly higher than 8,300. But in any case, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. A break of that level, a close below that level, opens the door for significantly lower levels. If Bitcoin does not bounce off these levels, like if we move into this level, and if we don't bounce, we have to see a bounce soon, guys. Here's the bottom line. If Bitcoin fails to bounce and get back above the 9,200, 9,300 level in this next time zone, so I've got a time zone here you can see on my right-hand screen. This is between these dates now, approximately between it looks like it's between 4th of March to 6th of March. Let me just double check that. I believe it is, actually I stand corrected, it's between the 2nd of March to the 6th of March. All right, guys, so that means this time window is going to be very important. If Bitcoin is going to be able to go back into bullish territory, it needs to get back above this trend line, the trend line that I just showed you on the weekly chart time frame, that long-term trend line that we saw there. It's fallen below that trend line, that purple line. It needs to get back above that. So we need to get back above that trend line. We need to get back above the 50 moving average, and we need to do it pretty soon, really between the 2nd to the 6th of March. If Bitcoin has not managed to do that between this next time window, and especially if it's fallen below this trend line and the key level I just mentioned here, then things will not be looking good for Bitcoin, because that essentially becomes a reversal in trend. A break of that trend line and break of that support level essentially becomes a trend reversal from bullish to bearish. And let me be clear, it's already not looking good for Bitcoin because we're below the 200 daily moving average and we're below the 21 weekly average. So it's already kind of reversing trend anyway as I'm speaking. But again, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. That's the line in the sand. That's like the last hurdle for Bitcoin. And I know from previous videos I've made, anytime Bitcoin is not showing signs of strength in this area, I mean, here's the thing, guys. If Bitcoin was going to go back into a bull market, it should have done it today. It should have done it yesterday, actually, because when it fell into this important support level, the 200 daily moving average and the 50 weekly average, it should have bounced. It should have rallied here. Bulls should have jumped in and pushed Bitcoin massively higher from here, but they've not done that. Bitcoin has failed to see a massive bounce, a massive rally from these levels. Now, again, maybe that's going to happen in a few days. We don't know. But the bottom line is, we got pulse fire to the downside, which is putting downward pressure on Bitcoin. And again, what's happening in the stock market, that could also put some downward pressure on Bitcoin too. But to be fair to Bitcoin, Bitcoin has actually held itself a lot better than the stock market. I mean, the Bitcoin drop here has been nothing like the absolute slaughter that we've seen on the major stock markets. So obviously, so far, Bitcoin has done much better than the stock market. So to be fair to people out there who think that Bitcoin is a safe haven and can act as the opposite to a recession or to the stock market, I would say fine. So far, so good. I mean, I don't like the fact that it's dropped down so significantly, but nonetheless, it hasn't fallen into bear market territory and it hasn't broken support yet. So let's see what happens. If the idea that Bitcoin can act as a safe haven is correct, especially in times of market crisis or, again, uncertainty, then we need to see Bitcoin rallying pretty soon and moving back up in this time zone, or at the very least quicker than that. But if it can't do that, if it can't rally higher and move back into bullish territory, so if it can't move back into bullish territory anytime soon, and instead if it breaks the support region that I just mentioned in this video, if it breaks support, then in my opinion, a break of that support level, if it happens in the next few days or in the coming weeks, could significantly lower the probability of Bitcoin's chances as a safe haven territory in times of a crisis or uncertainty. All right, guys, thanks very much indeed, and I'll see you guys in the next video update. Bye for now.